Huge round of applause for our president, Elena Hatib, for being just awesome year-round, putting on this incredible event and leading each and every single one of you to the next generation of republicanism. As Elena noted, I am running for city council in Manhattan's District 4. District 4 is, if you don't know, it's part of the Upper East Side. It's Midtown East, Midtown West, Murray Hill, Turtle Bay, Peter Cooper Village, Stuyvesant Town, and that kind of whole strip along the east side where the FDR is. And it's actually the district that I have lived in almost my entire life. I grew up in the district in 68th Street between Madison and Park. I went to school up there at Hewitt on 75th between Madison and Park. My religious education was up there at Temple Israel on 75th between Park and Lex. So really my life has revolved around this district. This is my community. And now is my time to really give back to this community that has given me so very much. I actually want to share with you a story before I talk a bit about some of the issues, because I think you'll appreciate it. So I had a really unconventional road to becoming a Republican. And in fact, it happened right here on NYU's campus. I'm sure there's probably not a lot of people that say they became a Republican at New York University, that it was my education at NYU that inspired me to become a member of the GOP, but in fact it was, and I'll share that story with you. So I was a Democrat in college, mostly because no one ever had a conversation with me about being a Republican. When I was 18, I went and registered to vote. And there was two options there, Democrat, Republican, but I thought there was something I had to do to become a Republican, or something I had to have said, or some sort of card I had to carry. No one had ever spoken to me about being a Republican. So I just clicked the Democrat box, and I think like a lot of 18-year-olds, I had that kind of Democratic idealism. It was the year of Gore, so I worked on that campaign, rah, rah, and we lost that one, I thought, okay, we're going to renew the fight. We keep going, we get to Kerry, and we lost that one too. And I didn't like what I saw during the Kerry campaign. I didn't like the way the Democratic Party treated constituents, certain segments of society. And it became very apparent to me early on that it was a lose-lose. And I felt disaffected. I felt like there wasn't a place for me in that party. In fact, I didn't even really think that I was a Democrat after that. So I kind of floated around for a little bit. I turned to, party-wise, I returned to New York after finishing college, and I began working at the New York Post, where I was a reporter at the city desk, and I got an enormously interesting education in conservatism working at the Post. I got to see New York in a way that I hadn't seen growing up on the Upper East Side, the real New York, the people that keep it going, the firemen, the policemen, the civil servants. I got to understand the crime, and I got to understand also the really wonderful things that happen in our city and the heroes that are everywhere around us. And while I was at New York Post, I started my master's degree here at NYU at the School of Continuing Professional Studies. And I had this professor, and he worked for a very liberal think tank. I won't name which one it is in case he's still here and any of you are taking classes with him. But this guy was a super duper liberal. He was the Superman of liberalism. You could not escape the way that he taught liberalism in the class. It pervaded every single thing that he did and every word that came out of his mouth. So he gave us an extra credit assignment. It was really simple. 500 words, who you're voting for, McCain or Obama. Now, knowing that every single person in that classroom was going to write their 500 words about Obama, I decided that I was going to write mine about McCain. And I spent a week diligently crafting an irrefutable argument about why John McCain was the better choice. And with about 30 kids in the class, and each one got up one at a time and did their 500 words, and I purposely made a point to wait to the end, and it was Obama, Obama, Obama. Finally, it was my turn, and I stood up, and I said, I'm voting for John McCain. And the collective gasp in the room, you would have thought I had just endorsed, Adolf Hitler for president or something. It was remarkable. People were shocked that I could stand up there and say that. And I presented my argument, and while I was up there, I had a revelation. I realized that I didn't just craft this argument, I actually believed this argument. And that's when I realized I was a Republican. And the next day I registered as one, and I voted for John McCain in the primary. That was one of the proudest days of my life. And that moment set me on a course that would absolutely fundamentally alter my life forever. And it's not just my life now, right? I believe that that very moment, right here on NYU's campus, shaped me into, admittedly, a very small cog in a giant revolutionary wheel that we now see, right, plowing across our country, and which is driving a very sharp wedge between the old Republicans and the new Republicans, those of us that hold the keys to a very innovative and updated future. So the Republican Revolution is ours, right? For the making, the shaping, and taking. And here's how we're going to do it. There are 4 steps. We're going to rebrand, reform, reintegrate, and reignite. So how are we going to rebrand? In many circles, being a Republican is a dirty word, right? When someone says you're a conservative, it carries with them connotations that simply don't apply to our generation anymore. So when I hear a young person say, I'm socially liberal but fiscally conservative, I don't hear a Democrat banging to get out, right? I hear a 21st century Republican who believes in the principles that our party has always defended. It's these very principles that lead many of us to believe that an individual's personal life choices are just that. They're their choices. And as conservatives, to be socially liberal is inherent to our nature. We don't have to define it. We don't have to use it as an excuse. To believe in social liberalism is to believe in limited government, self-reliance, and personal responsibility. That's why I call myself a progressive conservative. Now, I know a lot of you don't like the word progressive, and you might think that it's oxymoronic to say progressive and conservative in the same sentence. But let me try to explain. I would ask you to stop and consider, just for one moment, the root of the word progressivism. Anyone? It's progress, right? And progress is not the purview of any one party. Progress has not been invented or copyrighted or trademarked by the left. No single person, no politician or political ideology owns the right to progress. Progress is meant for all people and by all people. Progressivism and conservatism are not mutually exclusive. Myself and my peers embrace progressivism by developing center-right policies for the purpose of moving all of us forward. It's a new take on politics, right? It's a platform that's open-minded to all people from all political persuasions. It's transparent, it's unbiased, it's incorruptible, and it's imbued with a passion for purpose. Because if we are not progressive, what are we? We're regressive. And there's nothing regressive about me and my ideas, and I don't think there's anything regressive about yours. Remember, it's progressives on both sides of the aisle that are responsible for our greatest legislative achievements. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, but Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act. Elizabeth Cady Stanton fought for the rights of all women to vote, but Rosa Parks made sure all women of all colors could vote. I'm a progressive conservative because I believe that the world, the change world, does not have to bend to my beliefs, but that there's space in a change world for beliefs to flourish and thrive. In fact, I might say that there is no better time for conservatism to be the flame of freedom for our future. Our time is right now. And that takes me to our second step, reform. Just because it's within our grasp doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And the only way we can turn our message into a movement is to reform politics. And that starts by changing the way not only how we think about politicians, but how we engage in elections. New York is a great example of how desperate the need is. There are 51 seats on the New York Council. Only 8 members are under the age of 35, and that number might be less after the upcoming election. Only 13 members are women, down from 18 just 6 years ago. And with 4 women term limited, if we don't re-elect or elect more women this cycle, the impact of female leadership will be vastly depleted. This is not representative of the New York that we live in today. And we know that by every measure and indicator of economics, political stability, social cohesion, and quality of life are all vastly increased when women are in politics. Just ask Rwanda, the fastest growing economy in Africa, who has over 60% women in their legislature. But the statistic you should find most troubling is that 75% of our city council has either served in government, a community board, or in a union before being elected to office. We don't have a revolving door in New York politics. We have an open door with a welcome back sign posted on it. I have the distinct honor and pleasure of being the only viable candidate in the CD4 race that has never worked for the city and has never worked for a current or a former elected official. And that's important, because I'm not beholden to any person, any party, or any special interest. But our tacit acceptance of the system the way it is now has perpetuated a political culture at the national level and all the way down to our community level, where ambition trumps problem solving. We have a lot of problems to solve. 57% of 18 to 29-year-olds, you guys, say they can't afford to live in the city. And it's not much better for people my age, 30 to 49, where 55% say the city has become too expensive to live in. So lack of affordable housing is a huge problem for all New Yorkers, but very rarely do I ever hear concern about the recent graduates, like you guys, soon, hopefully, being a top priority. So how can we retain your talent when you're straddled with debt? And if you do find a way to stay, we need an economic climate that's favorable for business owners to hire you and for the entrepreneurs among you to tap into the resources you need to make your big idea the next New York-based global conglomerate. But as things are right now, that's simply not the case. Between taxes, bureaucratic red tape, and stringent, even oppressive government regulations, we are quickly pushing business out of business. It has to stop. We can't allow ourselves to be set up for failure. So that's why I made a commitment to you right now and to all the voters of District 4 and the residents of the 5 boroughs of New York that I will always do what's right and not what's politically expedient, convenient, or advantageous for myself. That brings me to our third step, reintegration. To make our vision a reality, we have to return to the inclusive politics that has always made the party so great and our tent so big. After all, we are the party that knew both slavery and gender inequality to be unacceptable. We are the party that gave the right to vote to people of all colors, including women. And we are the party that inspires unity, freedom, equality, and liberty. And because of this, I know we are not the party that banishes people from our shores or builds walls between ourselves and others. We are the party that demands, as the Gipper reminds us, that these walls should be torn down. We are the party that knows a house divided itself cannot stand. And we, as the future of this party, are acutely aware that if we don't focus our efforts on recruiting people like myself, people who never entertained or even thought of becoming a Republican in college, we're going to lose an entire generation of potentially awesome leadership. Because as Senator Tom Carper of Delaware recently noted during the confirmation hearing for our new Department of Homeland Security Secretary, John Kelly, the key to success of any organization I've ever been a part of or witnessed almost always enlightened leadership. So lead we will, and lead we must. We talk a lot about homelessness in the city, an issue I care deeply about and plan to address once in office. But I believe political homelessness is an issue we need to tackle as well. A mass exodus is happening from both parties, and the only way we can succeed in ensuring that conservative values and principles are brought back into our communities is to retain and grow our party with the type of positive, innovative, and updated platform that myself and my incredible team are sharing with you and the voters of the district. So that brings me to the last phase of our revolution. We need to reignite our faith in the party, our political peers, and our policies so that they reflect the world we live in and the beliefs that we hold dear. Because although humanity evolves, our conservative principles remain steadfast. They're always applicable, and they're always positively guiding in everything that we do. Now listen, I know that being a conservative on campus is not easy. Trust me, I have 4 degrees from educational institutions of higher education. The institutionalization of safe spaces and trigger warnings only serve to protect students from opinions that they don't want to hear. The silencing of conservative voices on campus is tolerated, if not encouraged, and I'll give you an example. When I was working on my PhD at Rutgers, I taught undergraduate political science. I designed a course on American foreign policy, international law, and national security. I began with a very basic premise. America is the greatest force for good that this world has ever seen. And I promised my students that American democracy has made the world more free, more prosperous, and more stable than any other time in history. That American stewardship is unquestionably the greatest blessing that has been ever given to this earth. I would tell my students I can point to any number of metrics to prove this is true. I can relay a story of America over the course of the semester that will convince any of them that I am right. And I promised them that I couldn't possibly fail because facts, real facts, and data and metrics were on my side. And because of my worldview, my conservative perspective, I was frequently and derogatively referred to as the quote-unquote pro-vet professor on campus, even though Rutgers was a yellow ribbon school. My research was always challenged in the classroom, even when my interpretations were visibly evident. And I was often told, you only came to that conclusion because you're a conservative. So I know it's not easy being a conservative on campus. Our schools and universities should be a place where all ideas are welcomed and challenged, not just challenged. So I'm here tonight for no other reason, in hopes to reignite your belief that politics can be purposeful. I came here tonight to reignite a commitment to conservatism. And I'm here to reignite your passion for progress, for a progressive conservative agenda that considers us millennials, because we are different. We are a unique generation. We are upwardly mobile. We are super connected, non-traditionally employed, and socially conscious when considering our major life decisions. And it's these factors that make us our country's most important and indispensable resource. The future depends on us, and our time is now. So before I finish out my remarks and take a couple of questions, I want to tell you that each and every single one of you has a really important role to play in my campaign. If you're ready to take on the challenge, it's not going to be easy, but it will be rewarding. And that's okay, because we're conservatives, right? And we know that our greatest achievements in life are the ones worth fighting for and the ones that are fought the hardest.